Rick Maddison for Kelowna Now Live with Mark Burley from downtown Kelowna, Executive Director. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I gave you a call last week because I had a lot of feedback from downtown owners as well as shop owners, and they were very concerned about the new BC assessments that have come out. Some of them experiencing an 80% increase in land values. And as you know, that could be a problem. So you as the steward of downtown, I thought it'd be great to come in and chat about this and maybe just help people understand a little bit about it. But what you're experiencing in your downtown Kelowna office, is the phone ringing a bit more?
Yeah, it did starting just before Christmas when property assessment notices started to come out. And then after the holiday break, had a couple of property owners reach out to me on the phone, met with a couple, going over what their assessments are. And along with, changes that have happened in our city, we have to remember that Kelowna is the fastest growing city in the country. Therefore, so is the downtown, so is Rutland, so is Pandosy Village,
Sure.
all that. So as we grow and bylaws change and development changes, and we now have fiber and urban centers here in Kelowna, and with those come building heights. And it would seem it's a combination of some property sales that have happened over the last couple of years that are attributing to a higher land value, as well as what BC Assessment calls the highest and best use of that area. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases where, like you said, some have gone up 80%, we have a couple of examples of over 100% increase in value. The building value has dropped where the land value has gone up. So because the highest and best use of, let's say, a piece of property on St. Paul is for 26 stories, but there's only value there that realized when that piece of property is put together with one or two others in a land assembly to be able to build, 26 stories. For example, the one business downtown who owns his own property, works out of it and everything, he said, if I put up 26 stories on my piece of land, it'll fall over.
Yeah. Well, and I think for a lot of people listening to this and watching this, the problem I think that we have to think about is there's a lot of retailers downtown that have triple net leases, which means that they would pay the property tax.
Correct.
And as a result of that, they are on the hook for potential massive increases. And I think that's the part that concerns a lot of business owners, is because they might not actually own the property. It might be a landlord that they're renting from or leasing from. But for them, they still get stuck with that. So there's a lot of questions around this. And I think that's why a lot of people are concerned.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions because we don't know what the property tax impact will be from the city. So, like the city has a budget, they collect enough money to cover that budget every year. So we're not sure exactly how that's all going to play out. And we won't know until tax notices come out. So what the concern from us as the Downtown Kelowna Association is, like you said, most people have a triple net lease. That means here's your monthly rent. This is how much you pay for your premises. And your triple net is your share of the gas, your share of the water, and, the common area costs and taxes. So any increases will get passed down to the people who are leasing that space. And for us, that's a concern, especially coming out of the CEBA repayment, which was only a couple of weeks ago.
Ooh, yes.
And all that. And plus, we haven't had a normal year of business in 4 years.
No, we have not.
Every summer is different. Every winter is different. And so, it's just like one normal year, please, where we have, an average cost of living going up. What were we a year ago? Our cost of living was 8.2%, I think, on average, or 7% some months, 9 others, and all the trickle down that's happening now with food pricing, product pricing. I mean, we've all noticed differences in when we go out to buy a shirt or when you go out to buy cucumbers, they've tripled in price. And now there's an assessment here and there's that uncertainty to it. So, and this has happened before. That's where it is. It's happened in Vancouver, happened in the West End BIA there back in 2010. It's happening in Victoria right now as we speak, and Nanaimo, where these increases of highest and best use are coming into play when it comes to building assessments in growing parts of any city.
So I guess the question I have is if, let's say I'm going to buy a frame for a Corvette Stingray, and it's a highly coveted vehicle, but it's rusted out. I'm just buying the frame, and they're saying, okay, you have to pay $100,000 for that frame. But it doesn't have an engine in it. It doesn't have any seats or any kind of finishings, but that's $100,000. Like, that's what that feels like to me is that pie in the sky. You know, we're going to put 26 stories on that. As you mentioned, some of these footprints will not sustain a 26 stories. So I'm wondering where these values all of a sudden took this massive increase. And you had said it was actually two particular properties that kind of pushed up this value that we're dealing with.
Well, there was a challenge. One of the businesses property owners reached out to BC Assessment with, here's the work we've done, and here's what we say our per square foot value is on the land, which was just shy of $300, say. Whereas, so the BC Assessment replied that no, we're basing it on two different sales in your area of density that sold at just under $500 a square foot.
Okay.
So there's the value in the land. But those sales were in 2022. And all of our tax assessment notices say, as of July 1st, 2023, not taking into account when those sales were, has the market depressed then, since then, or that, but that's what they're basing it on. So that's the highest and best use, because those two properties sold for, say, $500 a month, and these property owners are saying no, but, or $500 a square foot, sorry, $300. BC Assessment's not taking that. So now what's happening, we have a lot of property owners downtown who are appealing the assessment, which we can all do. If we get our property assessment, we can appeal it. So BC Assessment is getting a lot of appeals, and tomorrow's the last day for to file them.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why this is such a timely issue. Now, one of the sales, I think, wasn't it like the city of Kelowna was purchasing the property?
Yeah, that's what I've been told. There was a private sale and a city of Kelowna sale.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and based on short-term rentals, interest rates, I mean, some of those values might actually be softer now, given those circumstances.
Well, I think the biggest thing to hit us when it comes to property values and market value is the new STR laws that are coming into effect. You know, Kelowna's also got theirs that they put on. City Council passed those a couple of weeks ago that, that are pretty strict on what can be an Airbnb or a Verbo or a short-term rental, STR, and what can't. So properties that have been bought mostly in the high rises to be a short-term rental, an Airbnb, were valued at a certain value because they were allowed to, and they had a revenue model, income that would come in to support that. Well, now that they can't be an STR, nobody knows where those values of those properties are going to go until after May, when the new STR regulations come into effect.
Yeah, that's a moving target. That's a big one. I want to ask, and let's talk about this. What specific streets are they rezoning, and as such, the values have gone way up?
Well, this is just, me doing my research online and from the people who've reached out to me. It seems to me it's on the north side of Ellis. So you're using St. Paul has been drastically, has quite a few properties on it that are affected by this. Lawrence and Leon.
Okay.
Lawrence. Lawrence has got quite a few properties that have really gone up.
So a fellow reached out to me, a residential owner. He was 796 in 2023. Now he's 952 as far as value. He went from an RU1 zoning to a UC4. But what's interesting is he says 2 doors down, same bungalow. Those have been priced at mid sevens, and they're they've been on the market for 60 days. So he says the value, as far as the market value is even concerned, it's not even coming in on that. So, and I think that's part of the reason why there's so many appeals is people are going, we can't realize that value. And that's the part where we're all kind of scratching our heads.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point. That's the point that every property owner I've talked to speaks to is, I don't realize the value that my assessment has given me unless I team up with one or two other people to put pieces, that butt up against each other together. Then all of a sudden, maybe they'll get that value when they get somebody who wants to put a bigger building in, whether it be a commercial or residential property. That's immaterial. That's where the value of the land is 426 stories, but we all know you need a pretty big footprint to put even 20 stories, even 15 stories. So as to residential, where that's affecting in the case that you've given me there, I mean, I hope he's appealing that.
He is appealing.
Yes. He's got a pretty good case to talk to. But what I've seen from literally sitting on BC assessment and entering addresses as I've gone through, it's that one block or a couple of blocks of Lawrence and all up and down St. Paul that have been affected in their assessment. And, we also have one of the projects that's on one of those pieces of land is kind of on hold right now.
It is,
because of interest rates and costs of building and building materials, shortage of trades, all the things that the construction industry is going through also affect this because it takes longer to get something done.
And I think, and if I think it's the same property I'm thinking of, the footprint is really large for that.
Yeah.
So that 26, again, and that's the part where I guess the evaluation is so far off in the distance that you're fundamentally paying that tax leading up to, and what this residential owner said is, we're going to continually long-term rent that house. That's not our primary residence, but we're not selling it and getting that money. And like he says, we're not realizing those capital gains.
Yeah.
And that's the part, paying tax on a higher value hurts you because he's, fundamentally, no one is doing that land assembly around him except for a place further down, which has again increased his property.
Yeah, simple math would tell you, right? If you're going to pay more taxes every year for the next 10 years till you sell the building, whatever capital gains you've made, that brings that down, right? It's you're paying yourself, you're paying interest on money that's that you've invested in, and I think. We're talking in millions of dollars here when it comes to property values in commercial areas. And for the average person, it's, well, yeah, that's millions of bucks. If you can afford that land, you should be able to afford the taxes. Well, that's not really true because we have, particularly here in Kelowna, a lot of families or small business people who over the course of a number of years have assembled X number of properties, borrowing against one to be able to buy the other, there's that kind of thing. And it's so when they're renting those buildings, just like this building we're in here, it's a business. That's the revenue that comes in to pay for it. So if the government controlled side of it takes that dollar and makes it $1.50, then that 50 cents is charged to the person who's renting that building. Right. So you multiply that now by the millions, and that's where it starts to affect small business because it's happened in other cities. It happened in Victoria. It happened in the West End of Vancouver and the Robson Street area, all that back in 2010. So it's not like we haven't seen this before in the province. It's just we've never seen it here in Kelowna, and we got hit this year with it, and it caught everybody off guard. I wasn't even thinking about it, and I'm pretty sure most of the developers and the property owners weren't either.
I'm just thinking out loud of the amount of extra work it takes for the reviews, and it's considerable amount of work for lawyers and accountants, and it creates the appeal process has got to be arduous, I would imagine, and meticulous. So it's creating a lot of work for a lot of people, and it costs money, I think, to prepare that information documentation to prepare the appeal.
Well, you have to get a person who's an expert in that to put it together for you, whether that be an appraiser, a tax accountant, a tax lawyer, something like that is going to be representing you. I think what's happening now is, I know one owner who's in a partnership with a couple other people. They own 5 properties. They're appealing them all at the same time. So that would defray the cost. There is another group of owners who've banded together who are all putting their appeals in at the same time. That hopefully would defray some of the cost. But like you said, who knows when the appeal will be decided on, whether it's yes or no, or if they bring it down by 50%, which I'm not sure if that's ever been done before.
The only part that really hits me is, these small and medium-sized businesses, these mom and pop shops that exist downtown, which make downtown so charming.
Exactly.
And the potential exodus of those businesses just hurts my heart. It just, I think about these razor-thin margins for some of these restaurants, and I think, man, this is one other thing that they have to, food costs, interest rates, a whole bunch of other factors. And this is yet one more thing, and that's the part that really hits me is I really hope that somebody's listening going, you know what, maybe we should review this and hopefully that we don't lose anybody from downtown because of this decision making.
Well, we hope so. We hope that doesn't happen. I'm agreeing with you. Also Pandosy Village, Rutland, where there's lots of small mom and pop shops, as we refer to them, lots of private ownership happening that are leasing the facility that they operate their business in. And it's not only the restaurants are hit with thin margins right now, everybody is. Mm-hmm. And it makes it that much more difficult for the guy who lives up the street from you, and him and his wife leave at 6 o'clock every morning and get home at 8 o'clock every night because they're running their business themselves. Mm-hmm. I'm going to think of a couple of coffee shops on Bernard that are that way, and down on Ellis, privately owned restaurants on all of our streets downtown. We have lots of restaurants, and you just wonder, okay, how's this going to affect them if they don't own the building and they have to pick up a huge tax increase? We don't know what that's going to look like until it absolutely happens.
So I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, other than the fact that people should stop shopping on Amazon, my kids bug me all the time. Like, do not even look at that. Because for me, Amazon's never sponsored a soccer team.
Nope.
To my knowledge. So nope. I just feel like the businesses is the backbone. They employ people, they feed families, and they're an important backbone for our whole economy, not just in the Valley, of course, but elsewhere. Is there anything you think that the average citizen can do watching this that perhaps, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, is there anything that people can do that are listening to this that are concerned?
I just think it's more being aware of it. This is really something that is going to be driven by those that own the buildings and land that's affected. And that's what's interesting too with this. We have a couple of examples where last year's assessment had a building on that piece of land that was worth $210,000. That building's now valued at $30,000. But the land has gone up by 80%, right. So, or actually a little bit more. So it's kind of confusing. For the average person, you know what? It's a great question, Rick. I don't know what the average person can do other than
shop downtown.
Well, always. We always want that. Remember, you can park in a parkade all day long for just $6.
Oh, man.
And you don't have to get it out till right before 9 the next morning if you decide to stay downtown and have a couple of cocktails and dinner. So it's more contacting, our MLAs, our MPs, and saying, what are we doing to our businesses in our community? Because we need them and we want them around. And small businesses are the backbone of any community. Mm-hmm. So they employ people, they buy benefit packages for their employees, they provide money to the governments through CPP and EI contributions, because these employers not only deduct it off of our paychecks, they also pay a further portion on that. If they're self-employed, they're paying both ends of it. Mm-hmm. There's lots of costs in here that I don't think the average person understands that a self-employed person takes on, or for that matter, what a business owner takes on. And if we start losing those kinds of businesses through these kinds of things and just another here we are, year number 4, well, it's actually year number 5 if you think about it. So, talk to Renee Merrifield, to Ben Stewart, to Tracy Gray, and say, I'm concerned. This is what I read about, and find out some more information about it. So that's, I think, about the best thing that we can all do, because I've done it.
What's interesting though is this isn't really on a lot of media. Like I'm not like, it doesn't seem like it's well focused on, or the media spotlight hasn't really hit it yet. I mean, this could be the start of something, who knows, but it just feels like it's been an understated issue. And I wonder if, like, are people worried about reprisal for speaking out?
I don't think so. No, I think more than anything, it's this, we're only in the first step of it. That means we've got our assessments. We all have them. I have them. I'm pretty sure you do.
Yeah.
You look at it, you think it's fair or it's not. And if you don't think it's fair, then you're going to talk to like-minded individuals, whether if you're a downtown property owner or one in Rutland that's gone through the roof, you're talking to other property owners that what can we do about this? Same if mine was high in my neighborhood, I'd probably talk to my neighbors, say, hey, because you can see what everybody's worth on using the tool. I think the reason it's not in media, Rick, is because the tax notices haven't come out, and we don't know what the tax impact's going to be yet. There's some guesses out there that it could be $20,000 to $40,000 a year for some downtown property owners who have a decent sized piece of land, because it's gone up so much. So we won't know until those tax notices come out, and hopefully it's not going to hit everybody too bad too fast.
Well, it would be interesting to see where the story goes. And I want to thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us, because I think this is an issue that hopefully will be resolved, or at least appealed.
I think we're in chapter 1.
Yes, I think we are too.
Of a 3-chapter book. And I think chapter 2 comes out when the notices come out, or the assessment appeals start to fail. They're successful. So there's steps to go. And, the property owners that I know that have spoken to me are very gracious people who've given me lots of information so that I can speak intelligently about it, because this is something that not only have I never experienced, but neither have the property owners here. So we'll see what next steps are, and when they are, we'll talk again, I guess.
Thanks. Special thanks to Mark Burley, Executive Director of Downtown Kelowna. I'm Rick Maddison for Kelowna Now Live.